Hey there, this is Jeff, one of the authors of the weight loss book Speed, just bringing you the latest installment in the fiber series that I'm working on. This, I believe, is the third update or video on it. And so this one, try to keep fairly brief. I know the last one I ran a bit long, almost 15 minutes. I don't know how I do it. Well, I'm not that surprised. But anyway, try to keep this one pretty brief. In this one, I'm just going to talk about the research that I've been reviewing on fiber and colon health. And that's typically a big one. Most people, if you don't get enough fiber, then you have colon problems, particularly colon cancer and diverticulitis and irritable bowel syndrome, that kind of stuff. So interesting that what the evidence is saying. So I'm just going to review. I got about 8 papers here. Just going to give you the basic conclusions from them. There's a few review papers, some recent ones, and just give you an overview of what these papers are saying. So the first one, about 10, 11 years old, 1999, New England Journal of Medicine. Dietary fiber and the risk of colorectal cancer in women. The conclusion, and this was they looked at, this is a prospective study of almost 89,000 women, and during a 16-year follow-up. The conclusion, our data do not support the existence of an important protective effect of dietary fiber against colorectal cancer or adenomas. So interesting. So that's 1999, over 10 years old. The next year, 2000, another paper published in New England Journal of Medicine. The title kind of just gives away the ending, but a lack of effect of a low-fat, high-fiber diet on the recurrence of colorectal adenomas. So the conclusion, adopting a diet that is low in fat and high in fiber, fruits and vegetables, does not influence the risk of recurrence of colorectal adenomas, which are just benign tumors, but possibly turning into cancerous tumors. So there's the first two. Next one, interesting one, 2002 paper, carbohydrates and colorectal cancer risk among Chinese in North America. And the conclusion here, these data indicate that increased E-carbs, so effective carbs, and total carbohydrate consumption are both associated with increased risk of colorectal cancer in both sexes, and that among women, relative risk appears greatest for the right colon, whereas among men, relative risk appears greater for the rectum. A little bit different areas, but so a little bit dealing with just carbohydrates in general, related though with fiber, because overall carbohydrate, which is the foods that have fiber in them. Here's a 2003 paper, International Journal of Epidemiology, dietary fiber and the risk of colorectal cancer, in a follow-up study within the cohort, which was about 45,000 women. Within a cohort of older women characterized by a relatively low fiber intake, there was little evidence that dietary fiber intake lowers the risk of colorectal cancer. Not much evidence so far. This one paper was a review 2004, the role of different fibers in the treatment of irritable bowel syndrome. And here the benefits of fiber in the treatment of IBS are marginal for global IBS symptom improvement and irritable bowel syndrome related constipation. So certainly nothing that positive yet. Here's a recent review, Diet and Colorectal Cancer, 2007 paper. And let me get a couple points about it here. Again, they're reviewing multiple aspects. High intake of cereal fiber did not lower risk of colorectal cancer. Some of the papers that they were reviewing. So a number of papers weren't really showing it, though in general If the fiber was protective, it was mostly from vegetables, not grains or even fruits. Interesting. Evidence linking red meat and fiber with the development or prevention of colorectal cancer is conflicting. Evidence linking intake of vitamin D, calcium, and folate is slightly stronger. So certain nutrients, and there's been a lot more evidence about vitamin D in multiple things, but in this review, not really showing that fiber was that important. A couple more here. 2007 paper dealing with the polyp prevention trial. This study failed to show any effect of a low-fat, high-fiber, high-fruit, and vegetable eating pattern on adenoma recurrence, even with 8 years of follow-up. So this is a relatively long follow-up period, and again, not really finding much connection with fiber and adenomas. Another more review here in 2007, the World Journal of Gastroenterology. Fiber and colorectal diseases, separating fact from fiction. Just in the abstract, it says a strong case cannot be made for a protective effect of dietary fiber against colorectal polyp or cancer. Neither has fiber been found to be useful in chronic constipation and irritable bowel syndrome. And they go through, it's quite a detailed paper. And so when it comes to fiber and colorectal cancer, they're quoting some of the studies, and there was one paper I couldn't get a hold of, 2002 Cochrane Review paper on fiber and colorectal cancer. And so in here they're describing it that review concluded that there was no evidence based on randomized trials that increased fiber will reduce the incidence or recurrence of adenoma polyps over a 2 to 4 year period. Interesting, they point out too that in the 2002 American Dietetic Association position statement, increasing dietary fiber is still promoted to protect against colon cancer, despite stating that there is, and I guess the statement itself states there is no proof of efficacy of this. But do it anyways. It doesn't really make much sense. So again, this review goes into multiple aspects dealing with fiber and just general colon health, and it really doesn't even seem that even constipation, for instance, several studies looked at dietary fiber intake by people with chronic constipation, did not find any difference in fiber intake compared to controls, because there seems to be multiple aspects related to why someone's constipated. They found that many patients with severe constipation deteriorated when dietary fiber was increased. Interesting. And also the Cochrane reviews found that there was no clear evidence of benefit for bulking agents in IBS. In summary, there was little physiological basis for increasing fiber intake and thus bulkiness of the stool in constipation and defecatory disorders like IBS. So again, not a whole lot of evidence there. And then just a final paper, kind of related, this is more upper GI, a 2009 paper dealing with GERD or gastroesophageal reflux disease. Finding mostly weight, and particularly weight in the midsection, being a main deterrent aspect, or causal aspect for GERD. Not really much dietary stuff, and even some of the foods that are often thought of, like coffee and alcohol, may not actually be a causal agent. And I know one of the studies they talked about, coffee was inversely related with GERD, but in general, not much dietary aspects related to GERD, mostly body weight, particularly midsection weight. So anyways, just wanted to give you a quick overview of the studies looking at kind of digestive health and particularly colon health. And again, there really isn't much quality evidence saying that fiber is that important for colon health, which seems to go against what's typically said. And again, I think as more I'm reading, again, there's multiple variables when someone does eat more fibrous foods, fruits, vegetables, grains, that maybe other aspects that are helpful. Or if you're not, it may mean that overall your diet is just poor and higher amounts of sugar and just processed foods and processed ingredients that are more causal in digestive problems and colon cancer. So anyways, that's the latest update for the fiber aspects. There'll be another one next week, I think 2 or 3 more weeks here. Cover a couple more topics related with weight regulation and appetite control with fiber, and a few other things before I wrap it up, and hopefully have a good reason report for you guys to read through and be able to make a good decision about how much fiber you should and where to get it and how useful it is or is not. So until next time, thanks.